Welcome to the Parenting with Grace and Grit podcast, where every week we discuss behavior and the top 3 strategies we, as behavior analysts, suggest to work on it.
Today, we're talking about 3 simple strategies you can use to help siblings when a fight arises. Oftentimes, especially with new siblings, we can see the older sibling start to show some behaviors we may not have seen before, like biting, hitting, or pushing their sibling over. So what can you do to change this? While we do think every scenario is unique, we've got strategies for you today that can hopefully help you see the difference. And I will say these strategies definitely can help if it's vice versa, like maybe the little one is the one that's the little angry ball. Or it doesn't have to be new siblings either. So
Yeah, I have a lot of experience on this topic because my little one is an antagonizer. She's very sweet, but she takes no crap. So we'll have some good examples for you today. But our first strategy is simply going to be minimizing that attention. We really want to clarify that this does not mean we're going to ignore it. Let's say our children are fighting over a toy and the older sibling pushes or bites the younger sibling. Oftentimes, as parents, our first reaction is to try to teach our kid in the moment what they did wrong. So we'll say something like, no biting, or maybe it was a total shock because it's never happened before. And that causes us to raise our voice or sound surprised in some way. Some parents' default is just to start explaining why biting is wrong or why it shouldn't be happening. Like, we don't bite other people, that hurts their feelings. It's not nice and we need to use our words. And while this seems like it should work to stop the biting, the reality is that if you see it again and again and again, there's something that is maintaining that behavior, and it is probably attention. In our field, what we find is that the specific attention from the parent along with the crying from the sibling is usually what's causing the biting or hitting to happen again. In the world of human behavior, attention is attention. So basically, your bad attention, your reprimands can still increase and maintain those behaviors. So that just means that your kid will continue to bite and hit or do whatever they're doing because they're getting that attention from you. So the next time you see the biting, you want to minimize that attention. So anything from giving them stern looks or your facial expressions or hugging them, pats on the back, talking to them especially, is giving them attention in those moments. Depending on the severity of the behavior and how often you're seeing it, might determine how you minimize your attention. So, for example, one of your children hits the other child. That child that got hit might be having these big feelings about it. They might be crying. They might be having a big reaction to it. So we really want to minimize our attention. So we're not going to talk to them, but because there was that aggression, we do want to make sure it doesn't happen again. So what you can do is move the younger sibling or whoever the one is that's hitting, move them away from the bigger sibling so that they're not seeing their reaction and they're not able to do that to them again. Because we obviously want to make sure we're protecting our children and they're not going to be able to be hurt, whether that's from their sibling or not. So, remove the child that's the aggressor at the time. And that sounded really aggressive. Remove the child that
remove them from the family.
But what you want to do is just simply move them. If they're small enough, you just can pick them up and put them in a different area, but you're not going to be coddling them, rubbing their back, or talking to them. And then you just kind of wait.
Another example too, and this could be if, maybe the toddler is biting you, they're also biting the baby or hitting the baby, pushing the baby. What you can do in that moment, let's say that the toddler has pushed the baby over or something, you can pick up that baby and maybe turn your back or just walk away. And you don't have to, completely ignore them, but just taking a few steps away. And maybe that's especially something you can do if you get really worked up and it makes you angry or you're upset, that, you've seen that happen. Sometimes that can make our feelings get a little spiked as well. So just taking a step away so that way you don't say anything that you don't want to, like, yelling at them or whatever it may be. And then you can wait until that other child is calm or until they approach you. And then you can kind of tell them what you want them to do, which is part of strategy too, as well.
And just a note, we, again, are not saying ignore your child. We just want to minimize the attention to that behavior that they're doing. So we're not saying like go in another room and lock them out or something like that, but the point is to minimize the attention for that behavior.
Which brings us to strategy 2, which is waiting for your child to be calm before you start addressing the behavior. So, once you minimize your attention, you may see a spike in that behavior that causes the child who is biting or hitting to become more upset. Why? Well, because before they were getting those few moments of attention from you and now they are not. So, like we mentioned kind of before, this is temporary and we're not um, ignoring them for long periods of time or anything like that. We are just simply ignoring that behavior that they're doing. So, if they're biting or hitting or whatever. And the purpose of this strategy is that we are shifting our attention from that behavior that we don't want to see, like biting or hitting, and we are giving them attention for the appropriate behavior we want to see, which in this instance is the first step would be a calm body or just that they've calmed down a little bit. And in that moment, we might have to coach them through that behavior we want to see while they're upset, and that's totally okay too. So instead of saying, no biting, no biting, I told you to stop biting, we can instead stop focusing on that behavior and tell them, I'm waiting for you to have a calm body. Once you're calm, mommy's going to help you. Those kind of things. So you're coaching them on that behavior that you want to see versus just talking about that behavior that caused the whole problem. And then once your child is calm, you can start to talk about what happened. And that's when you can kind of start to throw in those family expectations that you might have. So, why you didn't like what you saw or what they can do next time instead. And just talk them through that behavior after it's happened. But we don't want to talk to them about it in that moment. We're waiting for them to calm down, whatever that might look like. And you can start to change your expectation for that slowly. So maybe at first they just stop crying. Then maybe they are walking closer to you and are calm, whatever it may be. And that's also too in this step is once they're calm and you've talked about it, that's maybe when you can have the child say sorry or those kind of things.
The only thing I want to add, I do hear some parents, who are like, well, I'm not going to let them get away with it. I can't let them get away with that. But first of all, that getting away with it it's like a punitive mindset. And we're really trying to teach our kids how to manage their emotions, how to manage their behavior and function in society. So yeah, maybe in your mind they're getting away with it, but if you are reprimanding them and giving them that attention and they are still doing it, they are getting away with it because they're getting what they want from you and they're continuing to do it. So really, if that is the kind of mindset, you have to switch it because it's not going to help. It's not going to make the interactions between the siblings better. It's not going to make the aggression or whatever it is better. And it's not about punishing them. It's just about teaching them how to get through their life better, more easily, and without hurting other people. And it's totally typical for these little ones to do this. If you have older kids, that's not so typical. Those are just based on age, but it doesn't mean you want them to do it. So you really have to teach them, which leads us into the next strategy. We want to really make sure that we are rewarding and telling them what a great job they are doing when they're doing it. And again, even though these behaviors are typical for our younger children, we don't want them to bite or hit or push other people, whether it's their sibling or not. And that also means that they might need some guidance on how to interact with their siblings. They might not have a real solid idea of how to share, how to play. And that's really, really, really hard for our little kids. So if you can set aside a couple minutes each day to model and prompt that appropriate play with them and maybe sit in between them so that you can block any sort of aggressive aggressive behaviors, then that's a bonus because we really want to be able to teach them how to do it. Maybe you just start with them playing with different toys next to each other without touching each other. Um, but you obviously can't always be there. There are other things to do to run a household and a family. So maybe then you just pop in when they are playing and tell them, hey, I love how you're playing right now. And then on the other side of that, one of your kids might just need a break from their sibling, and that's okay too. So just teach them that that's okay. Teach them where they can go, like maybe in their bedrooms or something, and to advocate for themselves. So if you hear them say, I need some time to myself, then you can go help facilitate that and remove the other sibling or help them get to a place where they can just be alone. And that will also hopefully help their play go more smoothly when they are together because they're not just constantly together.
Yeah, and I think that can be really hard too for tiny siblings or siblings that are so close in age. A lot of times it is that skill deficit that we're seeing. They're not sure how to ask for mom's attention. They're not used to a new sibling. They aren't used to having to share. And maybe they do share at school or daycare or different settings, but it's totally different when it's your home and you have this new sibling that's around 24/7 and you're not sure how to express your feelings or talk about it. So that's really just one thing that you can do is try to identify what exactly that they need and teach them that communication or teach them those play skills, teach them how to ask for breaks, and that can really make a big difference. So we hope those three strategies help. And now it's time for our Grace and Grit guidance segment, where we give advice to situations pertaining to topics from listeners. It's always anonymous. And if you want to write in, you can email us, graceandgritpcs@gmail.com. And we're very thankful for people who text or email us to tell us topics that they want to hear about, because that led to this episode, really, and a few others that we have planned coming up. So, all right. Hey, G and G. I feel like I have to tell my kid to stop touching, pushing, hitting his younger brother all day long. It never stops, and I'm so tired of having to tell them the same thing over and over again. So this can be super frustrating, especially if you are a stay-at-home mom. And I mean, just regardless of what kind of parent you are, it's so hard when you feel like you're having to repeat your directions over and over again, and you feel like they're not listening to you, it's not sticking. So let's talk about why that might be. I would say try first thing that you can do, and this is probably really hard for a busy mom, but try to set aside that time for one-on-one time if possible, even if it's just 5 minutes. We've talked about this several times in our episodes, just how proactively giving them that attention can make such a big difference in your day. So, giving them that one-on-one attention, even though it seems like this is specific to that sibling, it really can help make such a big difference. And then the second tip would be to provide loads of attention when they are playing nicely together. So making sure that you're catching that when they are doing it the right thing. And then redirecting them.
It sounds like he's probably getting a lot of attention for these behaviors he's doing. If you're having to tell him over and over and over again, he's getting a lot of words, a lot of attention from you for doing it. It might not even be that he's got some vendetta against the sibling or anything that he wants to push, hit, but if he's getting that attention, that might be the reason. So minimize that when he's doing it. And obviously, we can't just ignore him and let him keep doing it, right? So we're going to redirect him without talking to him. So when it happens, you may just pick him up or guide him gently to another area and get him involved in doing something else. Or again, you can pick up the little brother or sibling and move away with him. But we want to make sure that we're redirecting whoever needs to be redirected without giving that communication to him in that moment, because that's just giving him attention. Once you've gotten him engaged in activity, reinforce and tell him what a great job he's doing with that. And then maybe you can set aside some time to work on practicing more positive interactions with the sibling.
I think that's such a key takeaway, is that we really suggest not just working on things when they happen, but practicing things outside of those behaviors that you see. That's really how you're going to see the biggest difference, is teaching them those alternative things that they can be doing, teaching them how to play together appropriately, or whatever that skill might be specifically to what's causing that behavior.
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of opportunities where we can teach skills, but if kids are in anything but a nice, calm state, they're not retaining those skills, right? And if I just told you to like go do a double back handstand cartwheel. I don't even know if that's a thing. Like, you wouldn't be able to do that without practicing. Most of us wouldn't be able to do that at all. But without practicing, these kids need to practice these skills too. And the best way to learn is when they are feeling nice and calm and ready to learn. So, like Lacey made that great point, we have to practice any skill with our child more than just in the situation it's happening if we really want them to be learning it. We really hope this helps somebody. And if you have more questions about this topic or any other, please feel free and reach out.
Bye. If you need help or have additional questions, you can email us at graceandgritbcs@gmail.com. We also have free resources and products on our website. Visit us at graceandgritbcs.com. Thanks so much for listening to Parenting with Grace and Grit.